You are listening to The Michael Lodge Show. Wealth, business, and taxes. Oh yeah, and some politics. Let's get started.
And welcome to The Michael Lodge Show. This is Mike Lodge. I'm glad that you have joined me. I have not been on. I haven't done a podcast in, about 2 weeks now. And I think the reason why I've diddle-daddled around is because I'm just not happy with what I'm seeing out there. Now, let's start by talking about what's happening in Cuba and the non-response of the American government and President Biden. Here you have a country where individuals have been persecuted for over 62 years under the Castro regime and also whatever regime is in power at the moment. In fact, the individual who runs the country at the moment said he will not allow freedom. So you see these individuals out on the streets risking their life because you see they have no protection. They have no arms. They have no guns. They have no weapons that they can use against an evil government. But they're still out there. They're still taking that chance, the risk to fight for freedom. See, that's the key word. Freedom is the key word. Freedom is the word that even Americans are now starting to shout because we see that our government is becoming a socialist nation. And as freedom-loving Americans, we don't like that. So when we see Cuba and we see these individuals out there being shot by the police, being clobbered by the police, being thrown into jails, may never get out if this regime stays in power. Democrats remain silent. They say nothing. They have been fighting so hard to make America a socialist nation, and so now they can't say anything because they see a socialist nation, the number one socialist nation in the world, a communist nation, falling because their people want freedom. This isn't about the coronavirus. Don't believe that nonsense that Biden and the White House is putting out. In fact, don't believe anything that comes out of the White House because you just can't believe the lies. So we have individuals in the street shouting for freedom because they want to eat. They want to be able to own their own businesses. They want to be able to have their own jobs and do whatever they want to do as free people. But they don't have that chance because they are in a socialist, communist country. So Biden remains quiet. AOC remains quiet. Bernie Sanders says nothing. Because he was proud. When he was running for president, he was proud of what Cuba has done for their nation. As it was starving its people. Destroying the very people that love to call themselves Cuban and are proud of their nation now have to fight and fight and fight for freedom. And Bernie Sanders doesn't like that. So he remains silent. You see, what has happened in Cuba is starting in the smallest of fashion in the United States. We have got to support Cuba. Those individuals have been suffering for 62 years ever since Castro and his regime took over. It's time that we stand with the Cuban people. It's time that we support them in their time of need. In fact, it's been 62 years that they've had this time of need. But yet America has remained silent. It's time that Americans get to understand how these individuals are feeling in Cuba. And they have to ask themselves as Americans, do we want that in the United States? Do we want that to happen? There is no hybrid level of socialism or communism. There is none. All these nations across the world have fallen when they have been a socialist nation, communist nation. And we as Americans are being pushed this theory in our schools and our politics that socialism is good, but it's not, because it never works out. It will never work out, because once you become a socialist nation, then you have the most corrupt nation in the world. I mean, we are corrupt now with all of these individuals swirling around the United States praising communism. If you look at what's happening in Texas with these Democrats who said, we do not want to support a clean and fair election, so they left their state and went to Washington, D.C. And Kamala Harris is over there praising them for their stance. I was on a discussion this morning, and they were talking about how the black population of Texas is oppressed in their voting rights. Now, the problem when they try to make an argument, they spin, but they don't have an argument because they have not taken the time to read the legislation. But they spin because it's a political spin. And so you have these socialist Democrats that fly to Washington, D.C., where there are socialist sympathizers in Washington, D.C., and yet they have failed in their responsibility in representing their constituents. I'm surprised their constituents just don't say, listen, enough of your playing of games. We're going to go to the House and we're going to represent ourselves. Because we don't have representatives because they ran off. They ran off and didn't do their job. You see, that's what socialists do. When they want to make a point, they withhold democracy. And by them being in the Capitol to vote, that is part of democracy. But when they run away, they're fighting against democracy. And so we see the same thing happening right now in Cuba, where people are trying to fight for democracy, and they've got a government that is trying to destroy the lives of their very own people. And the Democrats that ran off to Washington, D.C. are not representing their people. In fact, they're fighting against democracy. So I didn't come on here for several weeks because I'm seeing all this happening, and I'm seeing what's happening in Washington, D.C. I'm seeing how the government are trying to push this coronavirus vaccine on the American people. And I tell you, it overwhelms me. I took the first shot. After that first shot, I literally lost my energy. And I have been extremely tired. And I can't hardly make it through the day without having to sit down and rest just a little bit. I've never had that happen to me before. My bones have been aching. I've never had that happen to me before. I have been a picture of health throughout my life. I have not had to go see the doctors. I have not had to go into the hospital. I have not had any flu vaccines. The only vaccines I have ever had was when I was a child for polio and chickenpox and smallpox. I have not had a injection of any kind since then, except for this coronavirus thing, because I thought, well, I'm going to travel. I want to travel, so I guess I'm going to have to get it. But I tell you, after that first shot, I was literally in bed trying to survive. It seems as though that all of a sudden something happened on my body that I had never experienced before, because I am the type of individual who can get up at 7 a.m. in the morning and work until 11 o'clock at night. That's how I have always been. And then all of a sudden I take this shot and I have no more drive. So it's been a frustrating thing. And then I listen to what's happening around this nation, and I listen to what's happening in Cuba, and I'm thinking, what part of time are we in? If you want to look at a biblical sense, are we at the very end here? I have to ask myself, because I was raised in a religious family who always preached to me that the time of the world will end at some point in time. And I see Dr. Fauci, who's up there, and he says one thing, does another thing, says another thing that contradicts what he already has said, and it's nothing but nonsense from one individual who tried to destroy a nation. If you think that he was in this for protecting the American people, no, this was pure politics. Politics does nothing to help a nation when they're sick. So we are constantly in battle with words. And I've given you lectures on words and the importance of words and how we use them and how we say them. But when it becomes political words, then we really have to step back and reassess our position, our thought process. And I had to do that. Over the last 2 weeks, I have literally had to sit back because I had this time that I was so frustrated. And maybe a portion of it might have been depression because of what I see going on. And it may be. And I had to change my mindset. And that's why I'm on here this morning doing this podcast, because I've got to get back into the grind. So this last week I thought, okay, I am laying here and I'm exhausted. But you know what? I can get some online learning. I need to refresh my mind. I need to get it stimulated once again. Because we're bombarded with bad news every single day, and you've got to take a mindset change and do something that benefits you as an individual. And also those around you, or those individuals that need your help. So I began taking online classes. LinkedIn has a really good course summary. And it goes on everything. So I decided, well, since I'm a mediator, let me find everything that I can find on negotiations and on dispute resolution. I think I've done almost 10 lessons within this last week. And I have enjoyed every single moment because my mind was stimulated once again. And I turned off all the news. I turned off all the nonsense that is going around us constantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And changed my mindset. Now, I want you to know that I am with the Cuban people. I will stand with you. The American people will stand with you. Our politicians will not. Our politicians will sit there because that's the direction they want to take our nation, is into a socialist type of country. But not the American people. We stand here and we support the Cuban population. Wherever you may be, if you're in Cuba or if you're in Florida. I am so proud of the Floridan Cuban community and getting out there onto the streets and supporting their country people and their families and their friends back in Cuba. I'm so very proud of you. That is democracy in action. Freedom of speech. Freedom to join together in a common cause that is trying to help another nation. And even the people, the Cubans in America, if they could just be able to communicate with their families and friends, it would make their lives so much better. And it would make the individuals in Cuba, if they could just get their money faster, they could get their water. They have no water. They can't even find water anywhere. So to the Cuban population in Florida and around the United States, wherever you may be, Don't give up on freedom in Cuba. Because when they hear your free voices, they want to be free too. And whatever you can do to support these individuals in this beautiful island country, do it. If you need to get into your churches and begin to pray, pray. If you need to start putting boats together and shipping food and water and everything else over to Cuba, do it. Now, in America, when you look at what's happening in Texas and you see these Democrats trying to escape their own state and go to the arms of other socialists in Washington, D.C., you have to take a look at that. All over America, watch what is happening in Texas. Because it could be happening in your communities also. You have to be vigilant to fight for your freedoms. Everybody in this country should be saying freedom. Those in Cuba should be shouting freedom. Americans across this nation should be holding hands and saying, we want to keep our freedoms, and yell and shout freedom. We have to fight for our own freedoms. We have to fight for our own democracy, for our own liberties. We have to fight, and we have to fight, and we have to fight. Our words mean a lot to this nation. Your words mean a lot to this nation, but don't shout angrily. Shout with passion and with love and with respect towards our nation. You have a message, and the message is, I will not lose my freedom. I will not allow socialist politicians to take control over my schools, over my cities, over my community, over my state, over my nation. I will not let that happen. Fight. Shout freedom. Let the word freedom be on every car. May it be on every building. May it be on every flag. Freedom. Freedom is what we're fighting for. That's what the Cuban people are fighting for. Now we have to bring that fight to America because we are in the same situation or getting close to that same situation because of the leaders that lead this country. We have to fight for our freedom. I hope that every single one of you are spending some time in church or on your knees and praying for this nation. There is a whole bunch of politicians spinning socialist propaganda. They are. But you see, when you talk to God, you can't spin. God knows a good spin. And he'll stop that spin right in the tracks. If that's the kind of prayer that you're going to tell God. God wants the truth. He doesn't want to spin. I love this country, and I love the people of Cuba. My heart, my prayers are with you. Each and every single one of you, if you are in Cuba, know this, that Americans are praying for you. They're hoping for you. They're out there in the streets demonstrating for you. And now we have to do the same thing for America. This is Mike Lodge. I hope everybody had a great weekend and the first part of this week. We have a lot of responsibilities, you and I. A lot of responsibilities. Let's remain focused. Remain focused. Listen, if you like my podcast, you like the content of it, go to www.buymeacoffee.com/Michael Lodge. And if you have any questions or responses or remarks that you would like to send me, send it to info@lodge-co.com. If you want to know what I do in my real job, in my day job, go to www.lodge-co.com. I run a mediation business for both business and family. And I'm here to help you if you need it. Again, this is Mike Lodge. Everybody go and have a great day. I'll talk with you soon. Bye-bye. This podcast is produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content.